Thank you. All right, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present tonight. I am Dr. Donna Christie, President of the Prince George's County Educators Association, representing your 10,000 professionally certified educators. And I'm here to discuss how open bargaining and bargaining for the common good have transformed negotiations in our district. Together, these approaches ensure trust, equity, and collaboration in decisions that impact our students, educators, and community. When we talk about bargaining, we're talking about the future of our schools. And our state's attorney used the word transparency. I think you heard it from several other speakers as well. Transparent and community-centered approaches bring people together. They let parents, educators, and community members see how decisions are made and ensure those decisions reflect shared priorities. And transparency is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When decisions are made in secret rooms, we risk losing the trust of the people we serve. These principles are not just effective, they're necessary to maintain the trust in our public schools. So what is open bargaining? Open bargaining is about inviting everyone with an interest in our schools, our educators, our school board members, our parents, and the community into the process. It allows them to witness negotiations firsthand, removing any room for misconceptions or misinformation. Instead of hearing secondhand accounts, they see the real issues being discussed and the challenges we face, and the thoughtful rationale behind each position. Transparency strengthens trust. What are you afraid of? Open bargaining shows that you have nothing to hide and everything to gain: trust, unity, and solutions. When interest holders observe the process, they see the mutual commitment between the board, the educators, and the community to work together and resolve challenges collaboratively. Open bargaining doesn't just address the what of negotiations, it shows the why, fostering understanding and alignment across all parties. Bargaining for the common good goes beyond wages and benefits. It's about addressing the issues that impact our students and families, like housing insecurity, mental health, and equitable school funding. Bargaining for the common good ensures that negotiations reflect the broader priorities of the community, building schools that serve everyone equitably. And these principles are not new to us. Since 2019, we've successfully used open bargaining and bargaining for the common good to negotiate 2 agreements. These agreements delivered real benefits like improved working conditions, safer environments, and better supports for students. And our commitment to transparency and collaboration has proven that when everyone sees the process, they believe in the outcome. We recognize that the Public Employee Relations Board, also known as the PERB, has issued a regulation requiring closed negotiations. However, our legal counsel believes this regulation far exceeds the PERB's authority under Maryland law. The law is clear. The PERB cannot adopt regulations that restrict or weaken protections for public employees. And closing negotiations does that. It undermines transparency, trust, and the progress we've made. It's not just bad policy, it's bad governance. This regulation from the PERB doesn't just violate trust, it oversteps the law and undermines protections meant to safeguard fairness and transparency. The power of open bargaining lies in its ability to create trust and unity. By allowing interest holders to observe negotiations, it dispels the myths and misunderstandings that can arise in closed-door processes. They see the complexity of the issues and the collaborative effort required to solve them. The transparency reassures both the board and the community that decisions are being made with integrity and mutual commitment. Open bargaining replaces suspicion with clarity, conflict with collaboration, and doubt with trust. It's actually a much less adversarial style of bargaining, because when you know that your constituents are watching Everyone comes to the table with the attitude of problem solving instead of just, we're going to get more and you're going to get less. Bargaining for the common good ensures that our negotiations align with the community's priorities. By expanding traditional bargaining to address issues like housing insecurity, mental health, resources and equity and funding, we create schools where every child can thrive. This approach has already delivered results, and continuing it will only deepen the trust and collaboration we've built with our community. Our community understands the importance of transparency in negotiations. That's why thousands of people signed a petition to keep bargaining open. Sorry, there's thousands of names here. When thousands of people sign a petition, it sends a clear message. Our community values transparency, and they are demanding accountability and a voice in the future of their schools. They know that when interest holders can observe the process, it fosters trust, dispels that misinformation, and shows a unified commitment to addressing challenges together. Here are some responses we received from the community on the petition. One community member shared, "In my opinion, we need to continue to work together, school board, students, and parents, for the kids." Another shared, "Doing negotiations in closed-door manner is not a way to build relationships with your community. Transparency helps build trust. As an administration, there should be nothing to hide." This underscores how transparency strengthens the partnership between educators, families, and the Board of Education. And again, our legal counsel is clear. PERB's regulation to close negotiation is inconsistent with their statutory authority. Maryland law explicitly states that negotiation procedures are a permissive subject of bargaining, and the law that created the PERB expressly prohibits it from adopting any regulation that restricts or weakens protections for public employees. Adopting open bargaining aligns with both the law and our shared commitment to transparency. The decision before you is about values: transparency over secrecy, collaboration over conflict, and trust over division. By supporting open bargaining and bargaining for the common good, you honor the voices of educators, parents, and community members who are invested in our schools. Together, we can ensure that negotiations reflect our shared priorities and serve every student, teacher, and family in our district. Open bargaining isn't just about keeping negotiations transparent. It's about honoring the trust our community places in the process. When interest holders can observe negotiations, they see the dedication and effort that goes into resolving challenges collaboratively. By continuing to support open bargaining, you ensure that trust, clarity, and mutual commitment remain the cornerstones of our decision-making process. So let's move forward, guided by trust and equity. Tonight you have a choice: to stand with transparency and the law, or turn away from the principle of trust and accountability. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do if you want our schools to thrive. Please keep bargaining open. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christie. So I do want to recognize the Superintendent House if you have any comments.
What I'd like to do is turn the mic over to our General Counsel, Mr. Darnell Henderson, for any comments here.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Thank you, Mr. House, and good evening, board members. Regarding our ongoing labor negotiations with PGCEA, it should be clear that in May of 2024, the Maryland Public Relations Board, the PERB, enacted regulations regarding negotiations set forth in COMAR 1430-1301, which now requires the PGCPS to negotiate in good faith in closed session. And so that has been the administration's position, that in good faith in closed session is the law, and that is the way that we've chosen to move forward in compliance with the law.
So with that being said, thank you, Darnell. I will move into my superintendent's report. Thank you, Dr. Christie, and members of PGCEA and community that are here as well. We appreciate you. Welcome back again, and thank you, Chairman.
I think we have board members who have a question. Dr. Christie, if you want to get back to the mic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the board chair recognizes Dr. Moss.
Thank you both for being here this evening. There's no question about where I stand on this matter as someone who's been an educator. I wore my red tie tonight on purpose as an educator. Mr. Henderson, I do want to hear your perspective on what are the consequences of not following the COMAR regulation, given my strong stance in open negotiations. And I would also love to hear PGA's perspective on how PERB actually overstepped its statutory authority, and to what extent do you disagree with that conception from PGCEA, Attorney Henderson?
Yep, thank you very much, Board Member Moss, for the question. So, as it relates to, I'll answer the last question first. Has the PERB overstepped its boundaries? That's for an argument for the PERB, for PGCEA to make, for PGCPS to make, but the risk here is one of unknown consequence. And so usually when there's a issue with the PERB, there's one side, the board, against the labor relations, and sort of having that conversation and trying to figure out the conflict. The issue here is that any attorney worth their weight in salt could not advise their client to actively go against the plain language of the law. And maybe the PERB overstepped its boundary, but that is not for a school district or for the labor union to make that decision. It's for the PERB to sort of figure out whether or not their take or stance is not in line with the law. And so there is an unquantifiable liability here that if we go down a route where we open up negotiations, what kind of consequences that leave us as relates to the agreements that are created based on actively breaking the law to enter into those agreements.
Thank you. Alrighty.
Thank you, Dr. Moss, for the question. And if it's okay, I'm going to let our legal counsel do the rebuttal.
Good afternoon, Damon Felton, attorney with MSCA and PGCEA attorney. So in this particular case, it's very clear, and I would say that I'm very certain that the regulations, this is not law, the regulations that were promulgated by PERB have violated the law. The law restricts them from actually weakening or restricting the protections provided by the public employees or employee organizations. So what we have here previously, the current contract was negotiated under open bargaining. That's something that the negotiations and the association had the right to previously. Therefore, the PERB, who was subsequent to, or the regulations which are subsequent to that negotiations, cannot interfere with what occurred in the past, cannot interfere with the organization's right to open negotiations, and it is very certain, in my opinion, that the regulations, when looked at again, will be overturned. I would say to you this: I believe that the PERB did not have the history that we have here of open bargaining. We're not aware that this occurred in Prince George's County, promulgated the statute or the regulations, again, not statute, but the regulations, and when they get an opportunity to learn all the facts and review the law and review everything that we've sent to them previously, they are going to come to the right conclusion. So therefore, what we're asking for you to do is come to the right conclusion at this point in time. That is something that you have the right to do. There, in my opinion, are no consequences for that. And again, you have your recommendation from legal counsel, but if recommendations from legal counsel were always accepted, I wouldn't have some of the frustrations that I have at my job. All right?
Thank you.
So I would say to you, it's to do the right thing. You have the ability to do this. I'm saying to you that the PERB will subsequently do this when they look at this and consider it fully and understand what it really means. But we want to be able to do this now so that we can get the negotiations started and get things moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'm not sure, do you need, that was Damon Felton, by the way. I don't think we introduced his name for the record.
Thank you. Board Member Boucher-Strutter?
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation. Mr. Felton, you just hit on exactly where I wanted to head, was how quickly the board could address this, because as a board member who's been on this board for 6 years and has, there's been 2 very successful negotiations in this model. This has been quite upsetting to me because it's created conflict that we do not need right now at all. So when I look at this board and I see Judith Rivlin, renowned attorney in labor, I see a former NEA Advocacy Services Director, I do not understand how this happened, number one, and two, how they cannot move quickly. Like when I see, at least those 2 people whose reputations I know, can we ask them to move more quickly and resolve this? And that would be my request of the attorneys in the room.
Board Member Walker?
Thank you so much for the presentation. The small piece that I'll add to this is that, I don't believe it's the Board of Education who has the expertise to decide where the law is and where we move next steps. We have our attorneys who are here in order to guide us on what the law and regulations say. And so what the regulations say that are based on the law tells us, by way of what the expertise says, is that we will not be following the law should we choose to move forward. I, as a board member, don't have any issues at all with the amazing negotiations that we've had over the last couple of years. Whether it's in good faith or for the common good, it has always resulted in something that is favorable for our unions and PGCEA in particular. With that said, I guess what I'm looking to see, one, I thought we were under negotiations already. Are we not in negotiations as we currently speak? Okay.
No.
Thank you for that confirmation. But what I'm looking to understand is the PERB or once they decide on where it is we go forward, once they overturn what it is they said, then we'll move swiftly in order to make sure that we entertain the law and we follow that law. So from my perspective, although I have seen the amazingness that's happened in the last couple of years, I have no reason to believe that that won't continue even behind closed doors while we follow the law. When that is overturned, if that is overturned, unless someone tells me differently or shows me differently, I haven't seen that. What I've seen is the last 2 successful negotiations happen. So with that, I am under the perception and the belief and the vote, should it come to it, that we will follow the law, and that comes from the attorneys that guide us in our everyday. But thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful.
Thank you. Seeing that there's no more lights, we will move on to the next section. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to start off by acknowledging that January is National Board Appreciation Month.